Hey guys, Players in Green here, aka Sean, with another tutorial for you, this time on lighting effects, or lighting in general. I shouldn't say lighting effects, but lighting is one of the most important things in design, and it's something that people frequently ask, and I frequently see people in designs not doing the lighting and the shading. And it is really what takes a design to the next level. It is what is most important. It's what makes something good great. If you ever look at posterizers stuff, they always have the best lighting in the world. They always put a ton of time into lighting and making sure it is correct, and you should too. It's important. So what I have here is kind of the finished product, what we'll end up with after this tutorial of Gerald Green, kind of lit all around and lit nicely. Some of the things you'll need is Photoshop. I don't use apps. I don't know anything about them. And if you want to follow along, you can download this PNG of Gerald Green and the background. Alright, so before we start, I want to explain how lighting kind of works. So in any piece, in any image, not just this background, you want to identify your lighting source. And in this one, our light source is obviously behind Gerald Green right here. And it is hitting him from the back. And you really have to kind of understand how lighting works. Like if you haven't watched videos or tutorials on lighting, or even it's kind of even common sense if you really think about it. But when lighting hits you from certain places, obviously you're gonna be darker in others and lighting lit in other places. So when light hits you from behind, you're gonna be dark in the front and have highlights all around you on your outline. So that is what you're trying to capture here. Now there's a million different ways for lighting to be captured, and in different ways it is incorporated. This is just one way. I was hoping to go through them all, but it would take me forever. I would have to make hundreds of different tutorials. So when you do a piece and you're trying to do the lighting, at least identify where your light source is, and so that way you can kind of get an idea where you need to get the shading and where your guy should have highlights and where she should be shadowed. But hopefully you'll understand that more after this tutorial. So let's get rid of the finished product and see what we started with here. And this is what we're starting with, this Gerald Green, just in the image. So first thing we're going to do is duplicate this layer. So Control J, and we got our duplicate. And one of the first things we're going to do is change our exposure. And like I said, he's got to be dark in the front and have highlights all around. So what we're going to do is change his exposure, make him a little bit darker in the front. Not too dark, because there is a decent amount of lighting in this image. So we'll give him like, I think that looks good. He's just a tad dark. And now what we do to create that highlight is we're going to take our erase tool. And we're going to take a nice feathered brush. We'll keep it around 40. And you're going to erase the exposured layer you just had, just the outlines. So you're going to create an outline of Gerald Green with the eraser, and you want to make sure you go in further enough to where it looks semi-realistic, but not too far in where it's starting to become more of a direct light from the front or the side, because it's just completely behind. So there we go, got some nice lighting. It's important to get most of his outline. Like, I'm going to get underneath his pants here because the light would actually hit right around here, right in his arm, right through here. And then of course the ball, you gotta make sure you get the ball. The ball would be lit pretty much all around. I think I got everything covered from what I can see. He's not that dark, so it's tough to see the difference. Let me zoom in. Yeah, see, now that I get a little closer, you can see a little bit of the difference. I probably could have made him a little bit darker to make it more obvious that he has been erased, but that is fine. But see, here already looks like he's more part of it. And what you're going to do now is you're going to duplicate this layer again, and you're going to want to match the lighting color with Gerald Green. So what you're going to do is now you're going to go to your adjustments, go into your hue and saturation, colorize it, And you want to kind of match that yellow color that is in the image in your background. So you kind of just mess around with the hue and the saturation until you get something you like. It's a tough color to capture. It's like a interesting yellow. Alright. It's fairly matched. I mean, what do I have here? Yeah, it's about the same. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this a little bit darker because he is not dark enough in this. Alright, that should be good. You can see he already has a nicer outline, and I'm gonna change the opacity on this to make it a little bit lower. There we go, he looks a little bit more realistic. And for the shadow, there's a lot of ways to do the shadow. I typically will literally draw out the shadow with a brush. I'll take a feathered brush and I'll kind of go around and, you know, draw the whole thing out. I'm not going to do it right now. That's a really crappy example. I'm just going to delete that. But I'll usually draw it out to make it more precise. But what a lot of people do, and you can do it as well, but I don't always recommend it, is duplicate this layer, Control J. Then you're going to flip it horizontally, vertically. And you're going to try to match up his feet as perfectly as possible. And obviously the back of the heels are off, which is why I don't always recommend doing this, but you can warp them. So you can take the warp tool, warp the heels up, and there you go. He kind of matches. And then because it's on a perspective, you got to consider too, when you have a backlight where it's shining down, your shadow's not going to be too long, but it's going to be fairly long. So you want to change the perspective, which I'm doing by holding the control button and dragging up the image to get a more realistic perspective. And now, like, you see a reflection of him. Well, now we're going to use the color overlay, change the color to black, and then you just kind of change the opacity to what you like. And his shadow is going to be fairly dark because of the angle it's on. It's kind of on a more, it's not completely horizontal, it's kind of above him, so that will create a darker shadow. And then what you can do is afterwards you can create a new layer. Take your brush tool, feathered brush, you can kind of go over any areas you missed, like underneath the heel here. And then what I also like to do is get inside the shoe a little bit, create more of a shadow on the shoe, because the shoe would really be dark too. And then you lower this opacity here, and there you go. He looks more, he looks pretty much like he's in the image. And then what you do after all this, now that you've put a lot of time into all the detail, into the shadow and the lighting around him, is you'll merge everything together. So you can flatten your image or merge all your layers, and you go into filter, render, lighting effects, and this is where you'll be able to create an overall lighting in the image. What I'm going to do here though is that shadow was part of the image. I'm just going to get it out of there. Alright, now I'll have a nice square when I go back to filter the image. There you go. And you kind of just, you want to make it, when you do the rendering lighting effects, you want to see where your lighting is coming from, and you want to aim that towards the player. So right now I'm using the 2 o'clock spotlight, which is fine. It's not the greatest lighting for an image like this, but it's fine. And you want to get the lighting, you want to get the light source to be right where this is, right where you see the sun. I'll hit OK. And you see now it looks like everything is the same, is lit the same. And there you go, you have Gerald Green in your piece, and he looks more realistic than he did when we started out, which is great. And the finished product is pretty similar. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you understand a lot. If you have any questions, post below. I'm sorry I couldn't cover more in a short period of time. But thank you for watching. Follow me on Instagram, PlayersInGreen, Twitter, and subscribe to my channel on YouTube. Thanks guys for watching.